Today we're going to dive into Module 12, Lesson 1, the first lesson of our study of statistics and probability. We're starting off with samples and studies. A population consists of the members of a group of interest. Since it may be impractical to examine every member of a population, a sample or subset is sometimes selected to represent the population. If you think about it, it'd be hard to take and survey every person in the United States, but you could select a group of people in the United States to represent the entire opinion. The sample can then be analyzed to draw conclusions about the entire population. For instance, in the example above, we don't have anymore, the population of the student body. The population is the entire student body. However, the sample is going to be the students who participate in a specific survey. A simple random sample is where each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected as part of the sample. For example, going back to the concept of a survey in the school, a principal can generate a simple random sample by randomly drawing student ID numbers from a hat that contains the ID numbers of every student in the school. Other types of samples are described below. First, we're going to look at a systematic sample. For a systematic sample, students are selected according to a specific interval from a random starting point, such as selecting every third student. Interesting enough, when law enforcement do roadblocks for safety checks, they can't just take and randomly pick vehicles out of the line that look like they'd be worth looking closer at. Instead, they have to use either every vehicle gets checked or a systematic sample where it's like every fifth vehicle gets checked, something like that. The next term we're going to look at here is a self-selected sample, and in this one, the members volunteer to be included in the sample. This is not a very good sampling method. A convenient sample is another type of sample where members are readily available and easy to reach out to, such as students on a particular bus. They're convenient to be had. So let's say if you wanted to have an opinion of everybody's favorite lunch at the school, but you only interviewed one sixth grade class, that's going to be a convenient sample. Okay, that's not going to be truly representative of the whole school body. A stratified sample is where you're going to take and divide them into similar non-overlapping groups, such as grade levels, and then members are randomly selected from each group. Factors that can influence a type of sample include cost, time, and the ability of the availability of the willing participants. So, how much does it cost to do these surveys? How much time do you have to put into the surveys? And are people really willing to do it? When people come up to me and ask me to do a survey, my answer is always no. I've got more interesting things to do in my life than to take somebody else's survey. First problem says animals in a zoo are divided by species. When two animals are selected at random from each group to have their blood tested, identify the sample and then suggest a population from which it was selected. So they're divided by species. What does that sound like to you? That sounds stratified to me, where you divide them into groups and then select them at random from that group. The two animals are selected from each species, it says. That's our sample. The population is going to be every animal in the school, or the zoo. Yeah, we have animals in the school too. Every animal in the zoo is open to be selected. And then we're going to classify it as simple, systematic, self-selected, convenience, or stratified. My initial thought, stratified. And they said it is a stratified sample because, once again, it was divided into categories before the random selection. Moving forward from there, the sample data are often used to estimate the characteristics of a population. Therefore, a sample should be selected so that it is representative of the entire population. Also, the larger the sample size, the more samples are taken, the more closely it approximates the population. We refer to this as the law of large numbers. The more people that you bring into a survey, the more accurate the results of that survey is going to be. Bias. Yes, there is bias in statistics. Guarantee you, we have to work hard to keep it out of our surveys. It is an error that results in misrepresentation of a population. If a sample favors the one conclusion over another, that sample is going to be biased. And the data, therefore, is not going to be valid. Here we're going to take a look at biased versus unbiased samples. So we're going to look at, let's see, we have every fifth person coming in the grocery store is asked to name their favorite radio station. Do you think this one's going to be biased, or do you think it's going to be unbiased? Well, according to the textbook, this is going to be an unbiased survey because pretty much everybody goes in the grocery store. Yeah, I know there's some real uppity up folks that have people go shopping to them, and now we have Walmart delivery and Walmart grocery pickup and things of that nature. We're going to pretend those don't exist because that was created after this textbook was written. But as a general rule, sooner or later, everybody goes into the grocery store. So that's going to be an unbiased sample because each person has its opportunity to participate in the survey. For our next one, we're looking at the fifth person at a country music showcase is asked to name their favorite radio station. This one is biased all day long because if you're going to a country music showcase, odds are you like country music and you're going to pick a country music station. It's just the way things go there. So you won't find me at a country music showcase. Not going to happen. Moving forward from there, we've got some survey types of studies. The first type of study we can look at is a survey. And in a survey, the data are collected from responses given by a sample regarding their characteristics, behaviors, or opinions. And an example would be to determine whether the student body is happy with the spring dance theme. The dance committee asks a sample of students their opinion. The next possibility is going to be an observational study. An observational study is where members are measured without being affected by the study. Generally, they don't even know they're being studied. So what's happening here, a gaming company watches a group of teens play a selection of video games and notes which one the players play the most. That would be an observational study. And finally, we have an experiment. And for an experiment, the sample group is divided into two groups, an experimental group that undergoes a change and a control group that does not undergo a change. This is used heavily when testing medications. They will have one group receive the new medications, another group receive what they call a placebo. It's a fake medicine that does absolutely nothing, a sugar pill basically, and they compare the results of the two to see how effective the medication is. The effect of on the experimental group is compared to that of the control group. And oops, I covered something up there. I'll have to fix that in the actual lesson. The consensus is going to be a survey in which every member of the population is questioned so that there is no sample. So there is no sample when a census is conducted. It's not a sample, it is an entire everybody gets questioned. That's the idea behind a census. Everybody gets asked a question. Next, we're going to look at classifying types of techniques to determine whether each situation describes a survey, an observational study, or an experiment. Explain your reasoning. A local charity is interested in finding out whether their residents would use curbside pickup service for a donation. They distribute 30 questionnaires to people living in the neighborhood. And we want to know, is it a survey, is it an observational study, or is it an experiment? That is going to be a survey all day long because they gave them something that they have to fill out and then to gather their data. Survey all day long. So the next one is a company shows 5 different commercials that advertise the same products to a group of students. The company records the students' reactions to each. That's going to be an observational study because this time the students are not filling out any paperwork on it. They're just watching the commercials and other people are watching the students to see how they react. They are observing them. To design a survey, the design of a survey can introduce bias. Survey questions should not do any of the following. First, they should not be confusing. Really simple, straightforward questions. Next, they should encourage the members of the they should not encourage the members of a sample to answer a certain way. So you need to do it plain vanilla, straight up yes or no answers. No encouragement one way or the other. Next, they cannot be designed to cause a strong reaction. So some people will take and do surveys. The whole purpose of their surveys is to spin people up over something. And finally, they should address no more than one issue at a time. Each question can only address one issue, otherwise you might introduce bias into your survey. Bias versus unbiased survey questions. Is your favorite ice cream flavor plain vanilla or delicious chocolate? Well, let's see. Do you think there's bias there? I think there's bias there. Plain versus delicious. I think I know what they're going for. And they said this question is biased. It limits responses to vanilla or chocolate, and it encourages the participant to answer a certain way by using the adjectives of plain versus delicious. What types of reading material do you enjoy? Now that one is an unbiased survey because it is a straight up, throws it out there, nothing to confuse people. It's not encouraging them to answer a certain way. They're not motivating a strong reaction, and it's only addressing one question at a time. What kind of reading material do they prefer? Bias can also be introduced in the design of an experiment. To avoid this, members of the control group of an experiment should be randomly selected. Also, the only difference between the two groups should be the change being observed. A dog trainer wants to test the training speeds with new methods. She selects 3 terriers with a control group and teaches a trick using her normal method. She selects 3 greyhounds in the experimental group and teaches the same trick using a new method. Then she compares the training times, identify the experiment as biased or unbiased. Alright, now this experiment is definitely going to be biased. And the reason it's biased is because they put different breeds in the group versus the control group. One, you've got terrier group, which is what my DOG dog is. And she, being a terrier, tends to learn tricks pretty easy. Whereas the greyhound group may or may not learn tricks as easy. So you've got to make sure that when you're doing a group versus a control group, you're comparing apples to apples, for lack of better terms. Make sure you have the same exact thing in every group. That's going to be it for your lesson today. You all get started on your homework. Let me know if you have any questions in class tomorrow.